Hey guys, and welcome back to Gardens and Grace. For those of you that don't know me yet, my name is Tasha. And today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to talk from a very real place about my faith. And the reason I want to do that is because in creating this channel, one of the goals for me in creating this channel was to share my journey and to share who I am and to share my love of gardening. And I can't really do that without talking about my faith. So this is by no means me trying to shove my beliefs down anyone else's throat, nor is it my desire to, make anyone feel uncomfortable or anything like that. I just want to share from a real place my love for Jesus and how I found him in the garden. And I'm hoping that there's some people out there that this will encourage as well. So, a couple of years ago when I decided to start gardening, originally it was just a thought that I had. It was something that came from not being able to find zucchinis in a grocery store when I wanted them, organic zucchinis in a grocery store. I couldn't find them. And I thought, well, that's probably not too hard to grow. It also came as I was looking at the backs of labels. I have a daughter who's allergic to nuts, and as I'm looking at the backs of labels and realizing the food that we consume so often is filled with things I can't pronounce and a ton of preservatives, and I thought, this cannot be good for us. And so what would it be like just to grow a garden? Now, I grew up in a place where we had orange groves behind our house. And I remember my grandparents having a garden and things like that. But I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't grow up with us producing a majority of the food that we ate. So this was fairly new concept for me. And as I got out into the garden, I was going to start with just a simple little garden bed. Before you know it, it turned into 3 garden beds. And now it's a massive garden in my backyard where I grow a considerable amount of my produce, not everything. That's not feasible in my area and with the amount of space that I have. I don't think I can grow everything that my family eats, but I do grow a good bit of it. And the thing that I found, as much as my desire was to grow food, as I got out and I began to work the soil, and as I began to plant things, and as I began to see how things grow, and I began to see, watch the development of a seed. You plant a little seed in soil, and in the midst of that darkness, it germinates and it begins to grow. And that tiny little seed can grow into something amazing and beautiful. And it's so detailed and intricate and can produce so much food. A tomato plant can produce so much food, and it starts with a tiny little seed. What I found was I started to find God in the garden. I started to hear his voice in ways, I was a Christian by that point already, but I started to hear his voice in ways that I never had before. And it became this very intimate place of worship and a very intimate place of just finding him here. And I can remember one time, this happened not too long ago, but it was so beautiful. I saw a bumblebee, and then little markings on a bumblebee, how detailed and how perfect those little markings on a bumblebee. And later on that evening, I watched the sunset, and I thought, a magnificent, beautiful sunset contrasted with the tiniest details of a bumblebee. And I thought, this is who our God is, the creator of the heavens and the earth. He's in all the big things, and he's in the small things. He's in all the details. His creativity is so magnificent. He didn't just create these big, grand things. He also created the details on a tiny little bumblebee. The only thing that can come from that place is worship. And I really do. I see stewarding the earth the way that God called us to. I see planting a garden and being outside in his creation a form of worship. My heart is in awe all the time. There's so much wonder out here in the garden for me. And maybe that sounds silly to some people, but to me, it's worship. And it's a place where God meets me. And it's actually scriptural. It's biblical. So in Genesis, God planted a garden, and he met with Adam and Eve in that garden in the cool of the day. There's something very special about being outside in God's creation and him meeting us there in that place. The times where I hear his voice the loudest and the clearest, and the times where I'm filled with the most peace is when I'm in my garden. No matter what the day brings or no matter what's happened, I know that if I can just get to my garden, I can find the Lord. And he's with me all the time. It's not just in my garden, but this is a way, it's a space that he and I enjoy together. And so I wanted to be very transparent about that, because I feel that, you know, as I go through and I'm doing these how-tos on gardening things, and I'm talking about this from, you know, I talk about the practical things of gardening, and there's so much beauty in that to me. Anyway, God is in the practical. But there's something very spiritual that happens for me in my garden. And I feel like this way of being in the garden and this place of worship isn't just something that the Lord and I share. I feel like it's something he's doing with other people too. And there's something really cool I think he's doing in this season of our life for such a, you know, for this time in history where he's calling us back to the garden like he did in the beginning in Genesis. Like I said, he planted a garden. And he fellowshipped with Adam and Eve in that garden in the cool of the day. And at this time in history, I believe the Lord is calling us back to the garden. I believe he's calling us back to the simple way of living. I believe he's saying, you know, put down the hustle and bustle and the busyness and find some peace and find some joy and get your hands in the soil and meet me there. So I just want to encourage you, especially for someone who's struggling with your faith. Especially for someone who's going, God, I'm desperate for you, and I just need you to show up. I just want to hear from you. Get outside. Get outside. Meet him there. And maybe for you, it's not a garden. Maybe for you, worship looks different. Maybe for you, your place with the Lord looks different. Maybe it's a prayer closet. Maybe it's your church. Maybe it's your car rides after you drop the kids off at school, or while you're running your errands. Maybe it's that time when you're just doing the dishes. Whatever it is, I feel like this time in history, we're busier than we've ever been. And I think it's important that we take pause and we find that place where we can hear the Lord's voice, and we meet him there, and we let him minister to our hearts and heal what's broken. Every one of us. I'm hearing so many stories all over the place where there's so much brokenness and there's so much pain in this world. There's so much trauma. There's so many people who've been through things that I have a hard time even wrapping my mind around. And I feel like the enemy has stolen so much, but God wants to restore it and he wants to bring it back. And so I just want to encourage you, wherever it is that you hear the Lord's voice, go to that place, seek his face, and meet him there, and let him minister to you. And if you don't know him yet, and you're watching this video and you think, man, she's nuts. I'll agree with you. I totally am. I'm completely and totally in love with Jesus, with every single fiber of my being, with every part of me. He's so real, and he's so present, and he's so kind. He's my very best friend. He's my husband. He's the lover of my soul, the love of my life, my father, and everything in between. And if you don't know him yet, that's okay. I hope you stick around and I hope you get to know him, but even if you don't, I hope you stick around and you watch the tutorials and the how-tos and the garden videos. I hope you get out and you grow food. You don't have to share my beliefs. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to, push that on anyone. I just want to share who I am. And I can't share who I am without talking about my faith, without talking about my relationship. Because it's not someone I believe. It's not just something I believe. It's someone I know. And that's Jesus. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this very sentimental and emotional talk. May your garden be filled with grace, and may you be abundantly blessed. We'll see you next time. Bye.